Hey guys, it's Mike from Lumin Lights, and this is going to be a little tutorial video on how to use our wireless DMX Deluxe box. We also have here, just for reference, our DMX stick and our DMX, we'll call this the lipstick. But start off with the base units here, the Deluxe unit. I have two of them here. We're going to be using one as a transmitter and one as a receiver. The transmitter is going to be hooked up via this cable to my dongle box, which is an N-Tech USB Pro MK2, which is hooked up to my computer, which is running Freestyler DMX software. So I'm just going to make sure that we got that on and that we are getting a signal. We are. And we're first going to power up the unit. And this is something that a lot of people say when they first get these boxes. They plug them on, they power on. And if you can see here, the unit is, the numbers here in the first row are kind of, look like they're scrolling very rapidly through the different numbers. What it's doing is it's searching for a signal because I have not connected my DMX input signal yet. So this is not getting a signal. So it thinks it's a receiver and it's scanning the frequency waves looking for a signal. Now I'm going to plug in my cable here that has a DMX signal in it, and you will see that as soon as I do that, the numbers have stopped spinning and now they are set at 2.443 gigahertz or 3G. Looking over the unit itself, if we look at the back, you have obviously your DMX in, DMX out. You have power, where you plug in your little transformer, and you have your DMX antenna, which is very important that you keep this on. If you don't, you're not going to get any range. Whatever you're trying to control wirelessly is not going to be able to pick up a signal depending on the distance it is from the transformer. So always make sure you have your antenna on and that your antenna is screwed in all the way so that it is making contact with the pin inside the unit. Looking at the front of the unit, we have our LCD display with two lines of information. The first one is the frequency that you are on, and again we're showing here this is transmitting on 2.402 G or gigahertz. The next line we have two indicators, P and a colon and a number. That's going to stand for your power, or how much boost or amplitude you're getting from the unit as a transmitter. And you have ID, colon, and then a number. And this is going to be the frequency, the specific frequency that you are on. Now these units have 16 different frequencies that you can select on the 2.4 gigahertz frequency spectrum. Now why you want to have 16 frequencies? Because if you're on one frequency and there's a DJ or a band in another room in the catering hall that you're in and they're on the same frequency, your lights may start doing random things because they're being controlled by the other person's controller, or maybe your lights are midway between your transmitter and another transmitter and they don't know who to listen to, and they go back and forth between what you're sending and what somebody else is sending. So changing the ID number or the frequency that this is transmitting and receiving on will solve those problems. Now if we look further to the right, we have some LED indicators here. We have our on-off power switch, and we have two buttons labeled PA and ID. Now we'll start here with the PA. These buttons are in line with the bottom display because they're controlling these two functions. So the P is the power, and the higher you go at 3, that's our highest power output or amplitude. If you're in a larger room, you want to use the highest power. I pretty much put it on 3 all the time, no matter what. Next is the ID, and this is the frequencies, and you have 16 of them. So we start off with actually 0. ID 1 is going to correspond to a red color on our wireless stick transmitters, which, by the way, the stick and the lipstick can be used with these units as well. You can use one of these as your transmitter in your main rig and put these in your lights or whatever else you're trying to control, and they will pick up the signal. Now these only have 7 selectable frequencies. If you need more for your receivers, then you would get 2 box units. But for most applications, a box unit and a stick or a lipstick are fine. I'll explain the difference between the stick and the lipstick in a second. So going back to the ID, we have 16 channels, and with the press of the ID button each time you see that we're going through the different numbers. Now I got the set to ID7 right now. I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm going to flip on my other unit, which is not plugged into anything in the DMX port, as you can see here. It's just the power and the antenna. So when this turns on, it is going to look for a frequency. It's going to look for something to receive. Now I'll put this right on top so you can see this. Just like when we first turned on the transmitter, the numbers are scrolling like crazy because this is looking for a signal. Now this is transmitting. Why isn't this receiving? Because you have to have the same ID number. This is ID1 and here we're on ID7. So I'm going to hit my ID button until I get to ID1 again. And there we are, ID1. And you see by the indicator lights here up on top where it says T times D, that's the transmitter. And the other LED says R times D, that's a receiver. Depending on which lights are blinking is telling you what mode this unit is operating in. Now this bottom unit here that we have our DMX plugged into, it's blinking on the transmitter indicator. So this is transmitting DMX. If we look at our second unit, the numbers have stopped scrolling now, and we see that under receiving, under the R times D, we are blinking green. Blinking red means you are sending, blinking green means you are receiving. Notice that on the receiver, the transmitter is a solid red because it's not being used, and on the transmitter, the receiver is a solid green. So solid means nothing's happening as a receiver or as a transmitter. Blinking means it's either receiving or transmitting depending on how your setup is going. So now we've covered that, and again, you always want to make sure that your frequencies match up. Now, if we were to use one of these units, the Lumin Lights DMX stick functions both as a transmitter and a receiver. So if I were to power this up, you're going to have a little LED indicator right there, which is red at first, and red corresponds to ID1 on the box. If you were to go to ID2 now the transmitter has stopped blinking and it stays a solid color showing you what channel it's on. Now since this doesn't have an LCD digital readout display, you know what channel you're on by looking at the color. So channel 1 is red. The ID of the box is 2. So we need, in order for this to receive signal, it needs to be on the same channel. So we need to go to channel 2. And on this unit you would take something sharp like a toothpick or a paper clip. There's a little button inside this hole and you would just press this to the green channel, which is 2, and now in a second that green is going to start blinking, showing that it is receiving the signal. And I pressed it too many times. It's yellow actually. Let's go back to green. Actually, let's go back to red. There's red, there's green, and there you see now it started flashing. Now if you ever need to see on the stick or the lipstick what channel you are on and it's blinking red, meaning it's a transmitter, because again this unit can work as a transmitter, you can quickly just press the button here one time, and for a second or two it'll show you the color that it's on. So now this unit, as we said, can be used as a transmitter or a receiver. Now what's the difference? The difference being that if this gets a DMX signal going into it, it says, hey, I'm getting a signal, and it starts transmitting, becomes a transmitter. If there is no signal going into it, then and it's powered on, it's listening, and it's going to go into receiving mode, and it will display its color solid until it gets a signal. Once it gets a signal, it starts blinking green. Now, if you have, say, for example, 20 par cans around the room, and each of your par cans have a receiver plugged into it. Say if it's not one of our units that has built-in DMX, but you needed to retrofit DMX into it, you would purchase this, stick it into your moving head, stick it into your par can, whatever. If the light itself is set in master mode, in the menu, and most lights there's a master slave mode. Slave mode means it does not ever go into standalone mode and output a signal. It just sits there and waits for a signal. In slave mode, this will always wait until it gets a signal. It will not transmit. But if you have, say, 20 par cans in the room and they're all set to slave mode except for one light that you missed and it's in master mode, and you've got your transmitter transmitting, everything is working fine. Somebody comes over, leans over your DJ booth, big fat guy, a lot of fat and water in his body, and he lays right on this antenna, blocks the signal for an instant. That light that's in master mode has lost its signal. Now when a light is in master mode and it loses its signal, what does it do? It goes into master mode and it starts outputting a DMX signal, which means this would start transmitting whatever that light was doing, which means once that big fat guy walks away from your transmitter and it's outputting a signal, the lights that are closest to this light may respond to this transmitter and the light that is plugged into because it's a stronger signal. The lights that are closest to this transmitter will do what this transmitter says. But the bottom line is your show is not going to be functioning properly. So that's why it's always important when using our wireless sticks, put all your fixtures in slave mode. Now, with the wireless DMX lipstick, you don't have to worry about that because this is only acting as a receiver. And it works the same way. We plug it in, we get our power, we see what channel we're on channel 1. I'm going to put my box back to ID 1 and watch the LED on the lipstick. And there we go, 1, and we are blinking green again. So just like the other unit, to change your channels, you can push this little button, or on our more updated versions that we have now, we actually have a push button you can push and an LED indicator here showing that you are getting signal. So these will only act as receivers, so you never have to worry about, even if your light is in master mode, that it's going to start transmitting a signal through this unit. So if you're controlling multiple lights and none of those lights are ever used as a master, I would highly recommend going with the lipstick unit. So that is the tutorial on our wireless DMX transmitters receivers. I hope this was informative. If you have further questions, please feel free to contact us at luminlights.com.